because life is not just work. It can't be. I mean, it has to be holistic. And I came back because I saw things happening in India. And I realized I didn't have to be in the West to be successful.
You have experience of working in different type of organizations, such as from Target to McKinsey.
The board doesn't define where you work. It's the people you work with that defines where you work. The people define, the leadership defines the culture of that place. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now. My mantra for retail is keep listening and learning, because the beauty of India is its entrepreneurship. It is different. So I think life is about unlearning. It's not just about work. I mean, it could be marriage.
This would be fun rapid fire round.
No chance.
Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of X-Plore. But hey, what is X-Plore? It is an exciting and thought-provoking journey into the abyss of the corporate world, where we bring to you personalities from the industry who has been there, seen that, and achieved heights. Together, with their experience and your energy, you can be one step closer to your goals. Trust me, there is so much to learn in the next 40 to 45 minutes. Let's get started. Hello everyone. Today with us we have a very special guest, someone who started his journey in the departmental store in Pennsylvania and went on to become the group vice president of Target Corporation in US, where he spent 18 long years of his career. After which he came back to India and started his new chapter as the executive vice president of Wal-Mart, followed by being the CEO of Livermore Consulting, senior advisor at McKinsey, MD and CEO at Landmark Group, Spars Hypermarkets, and then he decided to help the young professionals of India and became the director of Myra School of Business, and currently a charter member at TIE Mysore. Mr. Rajeev Krishnan, everyone. Rajeev, first of all, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome and the introduction. Pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you so much. We are really excited to have this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of young minds, our listeners, including me, are going to learn a lot in the next 45 minutes. So today, business world is set on a global stage. There is freedom to work anywhere, regardless of the geographical factor. And you have experienced the work culture across continents. So what are your views upon the similarities and differences between the work culture across the geographies? And what are the things that we can learn from each other?
Wow, that's a pretty big question. And I think it's a very fluid question, because I think things have changed so much. And I think COVID has changed it even more. So I'll come back to that maybe at the end. But, when I was working in the US, I think the differences were quite stark. And I'm talking about 10, 15 years back. And while I continue to work for global companies that were in both countries, I think the differences were pretty clear in terms of, the US culture is, it's speed is life. I mean, things need to happen quick. It's now decision making there's not a lot of procrastination. Yes, it's based on facts, but it's not analysis paralysis. You get data, you analyze, you make a decision, you move. Personal, professional life are kept separate. You work from 8 to 5, you're done, you go home. You don't work till 10, 11 unless it's necessary. It's not a way of life. In India, I kind of noticed when I came back, I mean, people are in the office at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And I used to always wonder, everybody has a family, they have friends, they have, and that's important in life. And I think the West does a better job of that. India's kind of getting there, but there's still an opportunity. Tied to that, professional, personal lives are quite distinctly kept separate. I think friendships are easily made, and it's not saying that friendships are not okay, but a professional relationship at work stays a professional relationship very clearly. It doesn't interfere with work in any form. I mean, at least I've hardly seen it in the West. I think in India, sometimes it can get into the decision making and, decisions. Let's leave it at that. But the beauty on the other side, of course, is in India. I mean, there is a lot of that entrepreneurial, innovative spirit that just flows so easily, which maybe in the West it's not. It's very linear there. I mean, here it's a lot more open. There's ideas happening, and sometimes you just want to curb the ideas, but that spirit is there, which is amazing. I think the EQ part, which I believe in a lot, the emotional quotient, I think you find that in the East or in India much more than the West. But I think over the years, all that is really becoming thinner and smaller, because today, there are so many people from here who are there and vice versa. I mean, there are so many multinationals in India, so a lot of foreigners also work in India now. I think the cultures are also understanding each other a lot more, work with each other a lot more. So the lines are kind of getting blurred. There are a lot of multinational companies in India. MNCs are in India today also. So I think you're finding it getting, thinner, while the differences are clearly there. And maybe COVID has really moved that difference, or the gap that was there. It's moved it much closer because everybody's had to work digitally closer. Timings are blurred. A lot of things have changed. So I think it's in a good place in terms of what each can pick up from the other, because I think each one has some amazing strengths, but each one needs to use those strengths for where it is. You can't take the West and put into Indians and everybody has to be like that, or vice versa. It's just not going to work. I mean, cultures are different. You have to accept it, and you can't try to be like the other one, and you shouldn't, because that's the beauty of being different, and you need differences also.
Yes, sir. So what can the leaders do to incorporate that distinction between professional and personal life in the Indian work culture? Or is it really important even to do that?
I think as long as, this is not about so much so whether it's a professional or personal, whether the things are intertwined, you should have the ability to make decisions separately. If I make a professional decision, it should have nothing to do with whether I know your father or mother, or whether, a family relation. It should have nothing to do with any of that. I think that's the decision. So it's not about learning to do it. So I think it's a function of making sure you do it, because then you keep a very healthy workplace also. You notice a lot of times when, the word favoritisms get used, things get used, because you blur those lines sometimes. So I think it's left to each organization, depending on how healthy the work culture is in that place. But preferably always leave the professional part there, and then your personal relationship is outside. It should never blur. Doesn't mean you can't have a personal relationship with somebody at work. It's just that don't let it interfere.
Definitely, sir. So is it true that productivity is more in Western than Indians?
Well, I'm sitting right here right now in India, and if I said we're not productive, somebody's going to hit me upside the head. I think it's a function of how much, generally speaking, yes, I think the West is much more productive, because things are not pulled out much longer. If it can finish, I had that habit after I came back. Even now I do. I mean, if I'm in the office or whatever it is, at a certain time I leave. I mean, I do not stay in the office, because I try to set that as an example to say, you know what, if there's 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours that I'm at work, then it's my responsibility to try to finish most of my work,
Right.
not keeping the emergency stuff. I should be able to plan and get it done and then go home, because having that balance is, I think, even more important than showing that you can work for 12 hours. Because to me, that's just not productive, because life is not just work. It can't be. I mean, it has to be holistic. I mean, we're all human beings, so you need both sides of it. So yes, I think the West is, but it's not completely fair to say that anymore, because you're seeing a lot of Indian firms also adapting to what they think is right, which I think says, yeah, I need my time. I need my space with family or friends, or I need to take vacations, which maybe some of the older group didn't. They would be just work, 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 and everything was work. And I think that's starting to change a bit.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway is that life is not only about a work. It is a part of
Absolutely.
it is just a part
Absolutely.
of your life, not your whole life.
It's never, it doesn't make any sense to me in terms of, I see people, even myself. I mean, I remember, Lubna, when I was in my early years, I've not gone home for 3 days. I worked 3 days in a row. I slept in the office, and I worked because I just believed I had to. And as I kept getting older, and as I kept, then advising somebody else, I just realized that didn't really serve any purpose. Maybe I got a couple of bonus points with, my boss, who realized, man, this guy is really hardworking and whatever else. But beyond that, I was stupid, because I didn't sleep. I didn't, I gained maybe a couple of brownie points, but not enough to say work was life. Because at the end of the day, when we go up, nobody cares whether you work 12 hours or 14 hours. Nobody's going to care. But yeah, you should have worked hard. You should have worked well. You should have made a difference. You should have been successful, but not at the expense of both ways. I think this applies both ways. So.
Yes, so as you talk about the Indian startup ecosystem, but we still saw a lot of Indian students want to go and settle abroad. So what are your thoughts on this? And is there any downside of the Indian corporate world that young people don't want to live and work here?
Well, that's not true. I mean, to say that every Indian youngster is working abroad is not a fact. Do some people go abroad? Yeah. If you take the percentage of 1.25 or 1.3 billion people and say X amount are going, well, X amount of people are going. But I would be happy to take a wager with you, or a bet with you, that the percentage has been coming down in the last 5 to 7 years. because the opportunities have increased in India. See, earlier on, yeah, I mean, if there were only so many opportunities in this country and you had a chance to go study and try to get a job with a multinational or a Fortune 500 company or whatever, why wouldn't you go? Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be successful in life, right? And I think some people more than others. And in some families, going abroad was like considered. So I think you have to keep all that in mind as to why a lot of people went abroad. But I've said it for the last 15 years. I came back in, I think it was 2007. And I came back because I saw things happening in India. And I realized I didn't have to be in the West to be successful. Now, I went there for different reasons. I mean, I struggled. I worked from the bottom and came up. But I used to keep telling people the market is right here because we had first a growing population, we had a younger population, and then you started seeing companies come in. You started seeing new things happening, innovations happening, multinationals coming in. So once those opportunities coming, everybody doesn't run because the salaries are pretty good. You have a good, if you have money, honestly, Lubna, this is the place to live in. I mean, I had a lot of money in the US. I was very senior, but I didn't have much of a social life, if you want to call it that. I had a big house and a big car, and I'm not putting anybody down, each person to its own. But I think it's changing, and it also depends on what each of you want as youngsters. Is it the flavor of the month for you to go to the US and say, oh, I went to the US or to UK, or are you happy creating something here? So I don't think everybody's running. And on the flip side, so what if you go there, learn, but then do you come back? I guess the question is more on that rather than do I go and learn somewhere, get experience, and why not? I mean, that's also not a bad thing. But I think a lot of opportunities in India are changing that a bit.
Yes, sir. So moving on, you have experience of working in different type of organizations, such as from Target to McKinsey, and I'm sure each organization must have been very different in many aspects. So what were the learnings that you have picked up along the way that you would like to highlight for our listeners?
I think the first one is that no organization is the same and never will be the same. So never compare. And I think I made that mistake because, I was very fortunate that I worked for almost 18 years with one of the best companies in the world. And I still say it ashamedly. I still carry the bullseye on my heart. The bullseye is the Target logo. I joined them when they were 2 billion or 2.5 some billion, and I left them when they were 60 odd billion. I was a young kid, a department manager in a retail store, which means you handle small departments in a store. I left as a vice president of stores. So that journey was just amazing. And then when I came back to India, I came back with the biggest retailer in the world this time, as Wal-Mart, as a member of the Wal-Mart. And talk about a dream come true for this young kid who had gone with nothing, coming back in a senior role for the biggest company in the world. Forget retailer in the world. Wal-Mart is the number one company in the world. But fortunately, I made the mistake of trying to compare early on because that's all I knew. I only knew Target. And when I came to Wal-Mart, I assumed, well, everything has to be the same. Well, you realize over a period of time. And same thing happened when I went to McKinsey. Now, it was completely different. I went from being a management person to a consultant. McKinsey is consulting. Well, that's completely different. And fortunately there, my head was a little bit on saying, okay, this is going to be different, dude. You better be ready for, don't expect the same things to happen that happened in the past. So, and then Spar was again going back to a Target, but again different because it all boils down to people, at the end of the day. The board doesn't define where you work. It's the people you work with that defines where you work. The people define, the leadership defines the culture of that place. The leadership defines how and what happens there. It's not that the board Target defines who you are and the board Wal-Mart defines who you are and the logo for McKinsey defines who it is. No, it's the cultures of each of those places. And where do the cultures come from? From the leadership. So my learning was, don't first of all make the mistake and the assumption that everything is the same in life. You're stupid to think that. Because guess what, Lubna? You and I are different. We might have similarities, but we will never be the same in some form. But that's the beauty of our lives, that in these interactions and all that, you build, work relationships, you learn to live, you learn to, you learn basically. So I think the most important thing is be open-minded as you go to different places. Do your research before you go. Don't go to a bad place and then say, oh God, this was horrible. Well, you might not have done some basic research, which maybe people already knew, that the culture was bad or whatever. But if you generally speaking know what it's about and you're open enough to say, you know what, I want to learn, I want to be better, I want to make a difference, then chances are in most places you will fit, adapt, and be successful, provided you've picked what you want to do and like to do also. Because a lot of times we pick the wrong jobs, go to the company and then say, oh, this was a horrible place. Well, because you were unsuccessful in your job or role. That's the problem most times. And then you struggle with your boss because your work wasn't good, and then it just starts downhill. So I think my learning is, adapt, listen, learn, because you can always learn. And if you keep learning, you'll continue to be better. Chances are you'll be successful. And if it's really bad, get out. Don't waste your time there, because that's the worst thing you can do to yourself. If something is not working over a period of time, don't stay there and punish yourself. But there is something good everywhere. And normally if you look, you will find it, because there are always good people everywhere.
So you talked about learning. Do you also believe in unlearning? And how do you define unlearning?
Unlearning is that ego, yeah. It's the ego of saying, what, because Target was like this, Walmart had to be like that. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
I came from the second best retailer in the US to the first best retailer in the US, in terms of size at least. Their value systems, their DNA, while they were both discount stores, they were different. That's the only reason the two of them have still survived and are still two of the best in the US, because they were different. Now, I came in with my ego and rigidness of saying Target was this. Well, Walmart was definitely not that. And I remember all the Walmart guys, because I joined the Walmart team, they used to rip me all the time. Oh, there's a Target, there's a Target guy, there's a Target guy. We were all on the same team. And that's when I realized, you know what? I was now in India, I was now in Walmart, and I had to understand what Walmart was about. And there is some unlearning there. McKinsey, same thing. There was no question of going and being rigid in my own way, because the consulting firm was a certain way, McKinsey was a certain way. I had to learn how to work with my clients and my partners and people. It was different. So I think life is about unlearning. It's not just about work. Yeah? I mean, it could be marriage. If you don't adapt, if you don't, learn when to give in, when to, not be obstinate about just saying everything has to be this way. Well, the world doesn't move that way anymore. Maybe slow paced about 30, 40 years back. Today, change is happening. You have to adapt. I mean, if I don't start picking up some new skills and learning new stuff, I'll get outdated so fast. All of us do. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. You can agree to disagree also. Always, fight it out or whatever it is, but learn.
Thank you so much, sir. So coming to the next segment of understanding the retail market. So you have a lot of experience in understanding the retail consumer market. So what are the behavior that are very specific to the Indian retail market in the recent year that any business needs to keep in mind while entering into this segment?
Every time I've spoken anywhere, I do speak at campuses, I do speak at different places. And when somebody introduces me and say, you have a lot of experience, I always qualify it by saying one thing: I don't have any experience. And I don't sit in front of you as an expert, because especially if you're dealing with consumers, the biggest mistake you can make is claim that you know what's going on and you're on top of something, because there is so much fluidity and change within the consumer sector, in the service sector, in retail, that the most important thing is not to believe that you know, but to listen, learn, and adapt and keep innovating, because that is where India is at. I mean, if you look at retail today, it's so difficult to define what Indian retail is about. And COVID, I think, changed it even more, because online suddenly came in and moved things faster. But people ask me all the time, is it going to be online? Oh, online is going to take off and, the whole market's going to be on. The beauty of India is that if you just let retail be, modern, rural, all of it, if you look at everything that exists in India, this is an amalgamation of retail happening in different places, in different ways, at different speeds. All of it's happening in India. This is not going to be like the West. Online business went to 50% in China. And if all of us think it's just going to get there on its own or just going to happen, I personally don't think so. And the reason is, we Indians love shopping also. We love to touch, feel, see. Now, everybody is not just, on the mobile necessarily. But will that also progressively change? Will all that change? Yes. So I think the beauty of India right now is look at where you want to go, what you want to do, and then decide what models you want to adapt. Don't just be linear and say, I will only do this or I will only do that. Because, a tier 3 city in India might behave half of what a metro behaves like. A Mumbai and a Shimoga in Karnataka may not be the same, but both have huge retail markets. I had stores in Shimoga as well as in Bangalore. And Shimoga, while a lot of people said at that point, we're not sure whether we should open a store there, whether it'll be successful. It was one of the most successful stores we ever had. But the categories within that store behaved differently, did different things. So it was important to also kind of understand I need to adapt to what is in front of me and what I'm trying to sell and who I'm trying to sell to. So my mantra for retail is keep listening and learning, because the beauty of India is its entrepreneurship. I always use this as an analogy. Every morning when I used to drive to work and when I used to drive back, I always used to look outside the window to see what was happening. And I would drive the same road 99% of the time. But I was always curious to see, what is that flower vendor doing today? or what was somebody else, because you see something new and different. Yeah, you mean as simple as, I will never forget that vegetable tekewala, the push cart, that one day had a Google Pay sign sitting on there. And I'm like, damn, that's innovation. But that's what it's about. So you learn a lot just watching and looking and learning. So I think the beauty of India is perfect for innovation. And the diversity of our country, diversity of our states, diversity of a city itself. Bangalore is not a Bangalore anymore. I mean, each part of Bangalore is a different part of India sitting there, for example. So for us to say, I will take a food and grocery store and I'll do the same thing across Bangalore, it will never work because it's different and diverse.
Yes, sir. Consumers now demand a seamless omni-channel experience. If I have to call it, maybe a physical experience, physical plus digital. They want both. And I think purchasing a product from a e-commerce, though it bring a certain kind of certainty that if you have it, you will get it. But at this point, we are ignoring a lot of people who are in our villages who still go to their shop nearby and will buy whatever they have to get it.
It's funny you say that, and I don't think your group knows it as yet, but I'm on the verge of, I'm going to be a founder for a new retail venture. It's actually called CTU Phygital Private Limited.
Oh, wow,
because the journey for us is phygital, and purposely and intentionally, because the group of us that have got together all bring experiences from different sides. Some more stronger with certain affinity to maybe more digital, maybe more physical, so on and so forth. But to your point earlier on, I think that's what. And this is not just about you have to be in the village to be different. I just need to look at my mom who's 82 and she's different. So I don't need to go to a village for that. There are certain things she wants to do offline, and there's certain things that now she at 82 has learned to do online, which she would not do 2 years back or 3 years back. So I think, take a big city itself and you'll see differences happening there, But the beauty of India, however, is that we are I think our adaptation to digitization is one of the fastest in the world, I believe. Mobility and this Paytm and all that stuff. Nobody in the world uses it as much as, we do in India across economic geographies or economic lives or whatever it is, that's the beauty that sits in front of all of you to explore and kind of innovate with. So
I know you are a firm believer of emotional quotient, and today the focus is on emotionally connecting with the consumers. So what is your definition of emotional quotient, and how does emotional quotient positively and negatively impact any organization?
I have to clarify and I speak a lot about EQ also, I have to clarify, EQ never sits on its own. I'm already making the assumption that IQ exists, because any business that you go into, you need a business plan. You need, the talent to run the finances. You need all that stuff. So I make that assumption up front that IQ already exists when I make my case for EQ. But I think over the years and my own personal journey, I was a hard-nosed, I had to win at any cost. I had to get promoted every year. I had to. That's what I was. I was not a very intelligent person, but yeah, I had more IQ. I was very process-driven. Operations, I loved, all that stuff. And on the other side, yeah, I was innovative. I was creative. I have that mindset also. But I think the early years taught me the importance of, I didn't know what EQ was. So let me be honest also. I didn't know these dialogues of what EQ meant and all that. But we're all people and we're all human beings. And, eventually you'll understand that if you want to be successful, you have to make other people successful. Because you and I will never be successful. Never. Unless you're playing an instrument on your own or you're a golfer where you have to play on your own, almost everywhere else, you are relying on somebody else to win. You're relying on somebody else to be successful. You're relying on somebody else to help you get better. You're relying on somebody else to help you from a pit. I think I realized that early on in my life, saying, you have to connect with people. And maybe my own personal life story of, I came from a very well-to-do family, and then we didn't have any money at one point. My parents got divorced. I went from here to here. And then I started way down here with nothing. I used to unload trucks and I used to push shopping carts. And I made nothing those days, I remember. Then I had a lot, and then I didn't have a lot. And I think when I went through all those cycles of that, I started realizing that the people around you were from all different groups of people. It could have been my driver as well as it could have been my vice president at Target who cared about me. They both did. And both were very important in my life, instrumental in my life to be successful personally and professionally. My housekeeping staff at Spar, there's a photograph on Facebook somewhere, I think, and LinkedIn also, I think, where one of our stores, the opening was done by one of the oldest housekeeping member on our team who used to clean the men's bathroom, he was the one who opened that store for me and us. Because to me, that was important. They were part of our, and you know what a difference that made that day. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now. And that photograph is there somewhere. I have it. And I will never forget what it did to him and what it did to the office and what it did to all of us. You know, there was no hierarchy. It just suddenly went out of the window. And this human being, poor guy, I mean, he's to, I don't know, take a bus from point A to point B in Bangalore, which takes hours to make nothing, to proudly clean a bathroom, and then be recognized like this. You know what? He became the soul of Spar. He became the heart of Spar. And that culture just, it encouraged more people to be, I don't know, I don't know if you can feel it or see it, but to me, that's what EQ was about, because we all need each other to be successful. And I've seen it at Target, I think I saw it at Wal-Mart, I've seen it in most of these places. Most times we fail when the two don't work together. You know, the IQ part and the EQ part. On its own, yeah, I guess one can work to a point, but it won't go beyond that, because we are human beings and that's not going to change. No matter how many robots come, you and I, you know, after this conversation, for example, you will have a perception about me, whether you like it or not. You will. You are going to say something about me today. I know that. And vice versa. Something is going to happen. And why? If it's IQ, it would not have happened, my guess. And maybe I'm wrong, or the people who are watching or whatever it is. So I always say, you know, don't go. And I think COVID made me even more passionate about saying, don't walk past people anymore, man. Make a difference in the people's lives around you. You know, don't just walk with blindness saying, oh, I don't know that person, so I'm just going to walk past. That person could be struggling just for somebody to say hi to them for whatever it's worth. Maybe looking for a job, maybe something. And I think that EQ, being aware more than anything else, you know, just being emotionally aware of what is around you, I'm telling you, it will lift all of us as a society, as people, as individuals. It takes us somewhere else. Because when you and I finally die and go up, nobody's going to care whether I was the MD of Spar or Wal-Mart or McKinsey. Nobody's going to care. They might remember me for those small pieces of emotional connect we had, is my guess. And I'm willing to bet my life on it.
Moving on, I know you are a firm believer in making a difference in the communities and you are a part of social charge. So to what degree do you think Indian companies and employees are committed to working in a purpose-driven path?
I think I should qualify both. I think my experiences at Target taught me this, because my mentor and CEO at Target, Bob Ulrich, and the management team, they did this back in the 90s itself. They always said we have to be involved in our communities. I didn't understand it then. I didn't believe it. But I did it because I love Target. You know, I worked at Target, so whatever they told me to do, I did. Till I was made the head of community relations for the West Coast. And this was a big responsibility. And my boss and my mentor gave it to me intentionally, because I was not soft at heart. I was like, you know, boom, boom, boom. And I think he knew I had to soften up, and he gave me this responsibility. And I then understood what Target was doing, what we were trying to do, which is, if you don't take care of your community that you're in, where you work or where you sell or whatever you do, your community is never going to be with you at the end of the day when things are tough. It's not about when things are good alone. When everything is fine, yeah, I can go to a Target, I can go to a Wal-Mart, I have different choices, I can do whatever. But if I'm with you in whatever's happening in that community, so for example, Target did a lot with the schools around. You know, every customer who bought something, those days it was called, I think, Take Charge of Education or something of sort, a certain percentage went back to that local school that you chose as the customer. So we were part of all the schools around our community. Then we did something for the arts. We did something for women and domestic violence. We did things that were pertinent at that point in time. And I realized that that was so powerful, because we were spoken at in people's personal lives. You know, Target was spoken about. That's when I picked up saying, wow, this is not a business transaction. This is an emotional and the right transaction, because you are connected and you're making a difference in your community. So that said, I think, and one of the reasons why I joined SocioCharge was because Hemant had followed me. Hemant is the founder of SocioCharge, and he had been trying to help a lot of the Indian companies that were moving in that direction, but needed guidance, needed help. You know, 2% of your CSR money is allowed. You are supposed to spend 2% of your profit, but a lot of time it just gets spent. It may not be with clarity, may not be with the best intent is there, but it may not have gone finally to the right place. So I think there's a huge opportunity for all of you and everybody else in every company to pull together to say, you know, how do we utilize it better? formalize that whole community giving, community involvement, community doing, whatever it is, and make some significant differences. I think the opportunity is there. I think the will is there. If you look at leaders in our own industry, from Kumarangamangalam Birla to Anand Mahindra to Mr. Premji, to all of them, they give a lot. So it is happening around us. I mean, there are a lot of nameless people who give a lot. But I think if the corporations also got together, and most of the people who work there got together, today I think it's the decision is made there in a company, the money gets spent by the HR team or somebody else. But if organizations really kind of, build something constructive within the organization itself, then I can see a lot of stuff happening. And India needs it. I mean, we need it. Whether it's in a metro city or in a rural city, there's a lot of things that need help: food, poverty, education, water. There's so much to do still, so much.
Yeah. But is it practical to manage your purpose along with profit when you are a startup or a small company? You have like financial crunch, or you have a lot of things to still manage.
So separate all that words. Financial crunch means you're not profitable.
Yeah.
Possibly. Okay, so then I can't. Nobody's forcing you to do it if you can't, but you can give community sharing can be of the mind and of the heart and of physical. I can help physically. I don't have to give money all the time. We used to go mentor students in small government schools. You can plant trees. All that doesn't cost money. So I think it's all depending on what the heart of the company says. If I want to make a difference, guess what? I'm going to do it. I don't need money to do it. And if I have the money to do it, then guess what? I'm going to use the money to do it.
Definitely.
That's it. So no. I think it's you can do it in so many different ways, and money is not the defining. Definitely not the defining.
Definitely. So Rajeev, moving on to a very important segment, career guidance. You have worked with a B school and you have interacted with a lot of students closely. So what do you think are the mistakes B school students do in their MBA journey, which they should have avoided to get the most of the investment they are doing?
I don't think there's any linear answer for that here. I think the first thing is understand why you went to a B school. First of all, if it was to satisfy your family and somebody else, okay, then that's the defining reason for it. If it's because you're going there to learn and improve your management skills, which is what it's intended to do, then make sure you do that. And what I mean by that is management skills means what? I need to learn when I graduate from here and I go into the corporate world, I need to be able to work in a corporate environment, which means I need to learn communication skills. I need to learn people skills. I need to learn how to network. Those are the things I need to learn. I need to learn how to listen, adapt, solve problems. So in those 2 years in your management schools, make sure you do that. The exam is important, the grade is important, but if you don't learn some of these other things within that, all you're going to do is get a degree and go to get a corporate job, and then your first year will be like, wow, I didn't expect this. I think that's the general mistake. Utilize it more to figure out what all do I need to learn. And I'm also hoping that more business schools keep this mindset while they teach students. I think it's a two-way street. It's not so much so what the student needs to learn. I think it's what education is imparted from this side, that it just can't be a degree that's given out. Because that's one of the reasons I joined the business school, because I saw this gap and I was like, you know what, they're not being guided enough. The students are not being guided enough in terms of what they need to be ready for. So I think it's more of, I would encourage any of you, those of you who are either there or going there, go there to learn, but understand, list out these 4 or 5 things saying, if I was good in these things in my early years in my profession or my career, chances of my being successful are high, which is the EQ part, because the brains, I'm assuming you already have, because you got into that business school, your grades define. But your brains is not what's going to keep you successful right through. It will, but the early part is going to be navigating the relationships. Your boss, your people, time spent, workload, all that stuff. Reaching out to somebody for help, not knowing when to, who to ask for help, how to communicate to somebody, those kind of things. So,
also, a lot of people now wants to make career in retail. So, what do you think are the skills people should inculcate in that to be successful in this segment?
I wish more people went into retail, honestly, because I think the opportunities are so huge. Most people don't know. Even in my role as a director at Myra, I gave a couple classes around that, and they were amazed at all the different functionalities that exist in retail, which has everything from finance to supply chain to HR to marketing. All the functions you study somewhere else, retail has all those functions. It's extremely fast-paced because you can't stop. Change has to keep happening, has to keep happening. You will not get bored. I don't remember one boring day in 34 years of doing what I've done. I don't know. I don't remember a day I could relax because it's fast-paced, it's innovative, it's creative. The salaries and the financial part have changed significantly. I mean, when I joined retail, I think my people looked down at me. I mean, it was neither was it considered a career, nor was it financially okay. Today, guess what? I mean, who's the biggest company in the world? Yeah, it's
Walmart.
Walmart.
Yeah.
And keep going back through, you'll see a lot of retailers in the top companies. Profits are there, people are making money, people are being successful. That said, I think first of all, I think there could be a lot of education in terms of why retail is, oh, there's marketing in it, there's merchandising in it, there's finance, there is HR. You're dealing with thousands of people because these are big organizations. You have to create change, you have to be innovative, whatever. But I always look for three things, which I learned during my target years. I think you have to have high levels of energy, and I'll define that a little bit, time permitting, and enthusiasm and the ability to execute. About 6, 8, 9 dimensions that fall within it, within each of these. The first one is you have to have very high levels of accountability and you have to be able to demonstrate courage. So that's about you, the individual. And then it's the whole piece about how do you work within a team, because retail is very people-centric, whether it's in a store or a distribution center, or you're managing hundreds of people, thousands of people, and you're going to manage different stratas of people. You're going to manage somebody who's just got their first job to somebody who's been experienced all their life. So you have to build relationships, you have to communicate effectively, you have to learn to build trust. These are all the important things that can destroy companies. And I'll share a very interesting anecdote when I'm done with this. And the third part is I am good with the first piece, which is high levels of accountability and ability to demonstrate courage. I have the ability to build great teams. Then I have to be able to execute, which is I need to manage execution. I need to think strategically, and I should be able to drive change. Those are the 8 dimensions I always look for. And because it's so fast paced, the higher I went up in target, the higher I went up. The less time I actually spent on my business, the more time I spent on people. 80% of my times at times I would spend on just managing people, succession planning, promotions, training and development, all that. Because if that didn't work, all this other stuff doesn't work. I mean, your business just went kaput. I mean, every single Target store that had good people was successful, and 99% of them that didn't, Target, Spar, Walmart, any of them didn't. Right. So the skill sets have to be, you have to be used to fast pace. You have to be used to change, dealing with people, dealing with adversity, working hard. You have to roll up your sleeves and work hard. I remember changing the entire dress code when I joined Spar. I said jeans. Everybody is in jeans. Everybody is in whatever. Because, it didn't make any sense to me for all of us to be in suit and boot and everything else when the business was service. Yeah. You were on the ground in a retail store selling stuff. And we were not a luxury brand or something. You were selling food and grocery and whatever else. So I think huge opportunity. I'd be happy to help or in any way educate or whatever to say there are huge opportunities out there within the retail sphere as careers, basically. So, and good companies too.
I think after listening to this, a lot of students would be fascinated towards retail. And
I hope so. And with, there's so many startups are also coming up now. Yeah. So many. Right. And they need that experience too. And I don't think we have enough because, our retail is still immature in the organized way. We don't have, we don't have 100 years and 200 years of retail experience in the organized sector. We do have it in the unorganized sector. So there is a need for talent also, by the way. Huge need for talent.
Moving on, how do you plan your day better? And any tips, what are the things that can be done to plan your day better when you are surrounded by both professional and personal commitments?
I think the word that you used is good enough. Just make sure you do that, which is plan. Not planning is a recipe for disaster. I never used a calendar. I used to use these index cards early from the first 10, 15 years of my life. I would write down everything I had to do. I would write it down. So as to keep walking around, I'd keep writing. And then I'd come back and check that list and keep checking off. And then again, I'm using a Target example because we realized that most of our executives were not successful because they didn't know how to plan. They didn't know how to calendarize, and they didn't know how to manage executing that calendar. So we spent a lot of time teaching those skills because we realized that's why we were not getting results. And then I learned that's almost a basic necessity for all of us, no matter what business we go in. So find different tools. I think each one has, some of you might use a Microsoft calendar. I use my phone for everything. I mean, if I have to go buy shampoo tomorrow, I'll put it into my calendar.
Right.
That's just me. I mean, because it'll pop up. Or sometimes I use mail to remind myself to do certain things. So find something that will help you. It could be an index card, it could be a calendar, it could be anything, but do that.
Right.
And then make sure you use it. Don't just do it and then not use it. And be planful of your day, because I think what, as a lot of you youngsters go into the field, is, email will consume your time. And then you'll be sitting on email all the time, or on the flip side, you won't catch up with any of your email because there's so much coming.
Right.
Plan your day differently. When you go in the morning, maybe you say, this is my, again, depends on each company and depends on your bosses or whatever, but plan time for different things. I'm going to have my email time, I have my meeting time, I have my time, which is, I need time sometimes, which is just to think, unwind, downwind, whatever may be. So I think what you're asking is one of the most important things that are not taught anyway, which is being planful, managing your time, because that's the most precious thing you actually have. Or else, that first question you asked me in the difference between the East and the West, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I'm working from 8 to 8 instead of 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 because I just didn't plan my day. So
I think I've also heard that in US there is a 30-minute lunch break and 15 minutes tea break, and rather in India we have it little more. So I think planning your day in the age of information overload, planning is the first key priority.
Yeah, I don't know whether the US or not, but you're right though. I mean, I was kind of strict in the office. I mean, your breaks were your breaks, your lunches your lunch, but that didn't mean you couldn't go meet somebody. You couldn't go talk from desk to desk or whatever it was. But that's why I'm saying, instead of taking that schedule from 8 to 10, finish it from 8 to 5 and go home. Then suddenly the 30-minute breaks being 1 hour and all will stop. Because you don't have the time. You can't afford to have, 4 30-minute breaks or whatever. You'll finish your time and go home. And you know how many families and friends will be thankful and happy when you do that? You'll be amazed.
Right.
I'm sure you'll be happy if you went home at a decent time. So
definitely. So Rajeev, moving on, you have been awarded India's Most Trusted CEO Award by the World Consulting and Research Corporation. First of all, congratulations on that. And a lot of students dream about reaching at least one of the C-level positions in their career. So what are the qualities and habits that young graduates should be working upon that will differentiate them from the rest and will help them achieve that?
I don't know if it's a prescribed formula to get to a CEO. I think you ask most people who got to a CEO or an MD and they ask them, did you know that you took these 5 steps and that's what you got here? Most of us, I'm guessing, would say no. Yeah. I mean, we didn't. Yeah. I think there may have been some common denominators in terms of servant leadership. And for me, that was a very powerful thing I learned over a period of time, which is make others successful around you, first of all. Early on, what happened was I was about me. I was about I needed to be successful. I needed to. And then as you start becoming the boss of bigger teams, you realize I can be as smart as I want, but I don't count if everybody else doesn't win, if everybody else doesn't succeed. So I think one of the biggest things that you can do for yourselves at an early stage is see and take joy in seeing others win. You won't fail. Yeah. Because if you have that ability itself, you're way ahead of most people. Yeah. Because when you finally want to lead a team, forget being a CEO. That'll come as an output of your life's journey. A CEO is not going to be given to you in week 1 and week 10 and year 10, and that's not going to work that way. It'll be based on your performance and your personality and you as a person more than anything else, because it has to be a complete package in a sense. Let other people win, see other people succeed, learn how to communicate effectively, because I think these COVID times showed it more than others, and even otherwise. I mean, a good CEO learns how to manage the different groups of people. He takes people along. He and she takes people along. They're firm, they're tough, they're challenging possibly, but they believe in those pieces of it. So the EQ part for me, I think if you're good and smart in the first place, focus on the other people and make other people succeed. Be planful, be timely, and be good at decision making. I mean, as a CEO or as you move up into any C-suite position, you're paid to take decisions, not to procrastinate. And you have to take tough decisions, easy decisions, but take it, and you have to be able to take it fast. Yeah. So do you have that ability too? So those are the things you learn with experience and time. You learn those things at home also. I think a lot of us ignore home. For me, anytime I interview anybody, I'm always curious about the father and the mother at home. And it's amazing. 80% of the time, I'll get the answer, oh, my father was this, my father's done this, my father does this. But the mother, straight away, I'll get a housewife tag. Okay. My mother's a housewife. I was like, she's the one with the MBA degree, man, not anybody else. Because the amount we can learn from a mother sometimes, even a B school won't teach you that. You talk about planning, you talk about time management, you talk about managing all the damn egos in the house, talk about managing personalities, you talk about all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of stuff you can learn from home also, which we choose to ignore sometimes. So
I read somewhere that every woman is a working woman, just they're not salaried. So I think
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I
So
had, I
Rajeev,
had a dream one day. I don't know if I'll
yeah,
ever do that, but I wanted
yeah.
to have a retail store that was only run by women.
Wow,
Only. No guys. I had nothing against the
wow.
guys, but I had a lot of successful women on my team, my target years, India, wherever. But you have to learn from both. It's not saying guys are worse or a woman's bad, but I don't think we learn from each other as much as we could. So the housewife example was along those lines, that you have a mother at
Definitely.
home that can teach you so much. I mean,
Yeah. So, Rajiv, coming to the last segment of our podcast, this would be fun rapid fire round where I will be giving you a word and you have to answer it in one word, whatever comes into your mind about that topic.
no chance. Give it a shot. I've only seen this on TV. On TV, you always criticize the other one. Hey, he could have given that answer. He could have done this. I don't know. I'll give it a shot. So,
We can try if you are ready. Yeah. So, Indian job market,
dynamic,
US work culture,
focused,
future of retail,
disruptive,
millennials,
crazy.
internet,
No, I shouldn't just. I purposely wanted to give you guys a hard time. I think millennials very open-minded and eager to
yeah,
learn.
yeah.
Eager to learn.
Internet,
Dangerous,
COVID,
heart-wrenching.
B school,
Change leadership
money,
is what money does.
emotional quotient.
Your life.
Wow, that was great. With this, we are at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for taking out time in your busy schedule and joining with us in this so insightful session. It was a great learning experience for all our listeners. And but before we end, any final thoughts that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I think first of all, thanks for taking the time, and I don't know how many people's lives I would impact. I have no idea. I hope someone somewhere will come running to me someday and say, for whatever it's worth, some small iota of thanks for something in this conversation. But I think more importantly than that, my token line for everybody, mainly those who are younger and even otherwise, is go make a difference first in your life and go make a difference in other people's lives. Don't just live it and then go up. Don't. Because you'll only realize later on that you didn't really achieve anything in life. You really didn't. And I'm not the best person to give that advice, but I think I have seen enough of the good and the bad in that. And I've seen more good in that than the bad in that. That if each of you just did something, could be at home, it could be, with mom, dad, it could be with sister, brother, I don't know. Could be within your friend circle, it could be family, it could be work, it could be personal, it could be professional. It doesn't matter. But just do something that I think makes you, shed a tear or a gentle smile or something, or feel something like, you know what? Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I made a difference somewhere. You'll feel it.
Yeah.
And it's not about, for me, it was not the accolades of being trusted CEO. No. Yeah, that was mind blowing. I never expected any of those things. But I think I feel it more when I can see, you said it earlier on, when I see somebody smile and say, thank you for what you did for me. It's priceless. And I think a lot of you will see that it'll carry more power and strength in your careers than any salary or position you get. And the younger you start, this country, you, families, communities will be in a much better place than we ever were. So, wish you all the best and have fun,
Thank you so
enjoy
much.
life,
Thank you so much.
and most importantly, be yourselves. Don't be somebody
Yeah.
else. Just be yourselves. So,
Definitely. Thank you so much, Rajeev. So this was Rajeev Krishnan, everyone, sharing his learnings and experience of his career. Let's just try to implement whatever we have learned here today in this session. And stay tuned for our second episode with yet another industry leader. Till then, don't forget to subscribe to X-Plore on Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcast. Want more from Example? Check out the link in the description of our Instagram and LinkedIn handles. Thank you.